5 seconds to submergence. Submergence deep into the absurd.
So this is kind of the unofficial Thanksgiving special. And I mainly wanted to talk about gratitude. Namely, the importance of gratitude, having gratitude in your life. The problem with gratitude nowadays is that with atheism being such a so many people are atheists in our society, and they don't really know what to have gratitude for. Or not that they don't know what to have gratitude for, but they don't know where to attribute their gratitude towards, right? Whereas religious people, or people who believe in God, they can say, oh, I'm thankful to God, right? Thank God that I have this meal in front of me. Thank God that I have my family, But the atheist, I think they're not fully comprehending the fact that you don't really need to be thankful to something for the things that you have in your life. You can have gratitude without being grateful to a source. You don't need to be, like, I can say, I'm grateful for this food that I have. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for all these things. And I don't have to be grateful for them and at the same time name something that gave them to me. I can just say, thank you so much for all this stuff. I'm thinking, or I'm being grateful to reality itself for presenting these things to me, right? I'm being grateful for the consequential sequence of never-ending events that led to me having all this stuff in my life, right? And if you're religious, obviously you thank God for all that stuff, but it also goes a step further where you can thank the people in your life who have been there for you, who have done things for you, and have improved your life in some way, shape, or form. But then there's a question of free will. And if there's no free will, then how could you be grateful for anything, right? So that's the other question. Because there doesn't have to be, because there are arguments for there not being free will on both the religious and the non-religious spectrum, in the sense that, say, if there's a God and God is all-knowing, then that means that there is no free will because God already knows everything that you're going to do. God also put in place the set of arrangements that would lead to you doing the things that you're going to do, meaning that you don't have free will. I think this argument is flawed, but I'll get to that in a second. The other end of that is if you're atheist, you don't believe in God, then there is the aspect of, well, let's say for most atheists, they believe in the Big Bang. If they don't believe in the Big Bang, nonetheless, they believe in time. And with time and reality, there's always going to be a chain of events, a chain of cause and effect relationships that stems from the past going to the present moment, right? And there's only going to ever be one thing that happens in accordance. Like, if we were to have all the variables, if we knew where every single particle was, if we knew everything about particles and atoms and everything about them, we had all the variables, then theoretically we could predict everything that's going to happen in the future. We could. If we had all the variables and we knew where every particle was heading, then we could predict where everything was going. And with that said, that means that the future is only going to happen in one way. Time is only going to move forward in one way. And with that said, how could there be free will then, right? If you have a fate, if you have a destiny, then there is no free will. But that's where that argument kind of takes a turn. Or that's where I'm going to point out the flaw in this argument. In that just because you have a fate, just because you're only going to end up in one place, and that place is already known, or that place can theoretically be known if we have all the variables, that doesn't mean that you don't have free will. That doesn't mean that you aren't making your decisions for yourself, right? Just because your decisions are known, or because your decisions can be known, doesn't mean that you aren't making those decisions on your own free will. But of course, Nietzsche would say that free will is mythology, or actually he says that the unfree will is mythology, and that it's only a matter of weak and strong wills. And I think what he means by that is that if you have a strong will, you're less likely to be influenced by other people's will, right? Other things. There's also just the fact that the powerful overcomes the weak, and the weak is generally dominated by the powerful. Anyways, with all that being said, nonetheless, what I was going to say was that if people don't have free will, then how could you be thankful to people for doing things for you, right? And I'm saying that everyone at their core believes that they have free will, right? And also, people are inherently making decisions on their own. It doesn't really matter if these decisions are predetermined or not, because they are making these decisions. That means that when someone does something nice for you, they're making that decision. And with that being said, it's important to be grateful for those things. And psychologically, I don't have the data in front of me, but I did study psychology in college. And as far as my psychology of emotions class goes, there's a lot of research out there that suggests that having gratitude in your life increases your well-being. And by increasing your well-being, i.e. your emotional well-being, that is, that can lead to this sort of snowball effect with positivity, where if you're happy and you're positive, you'll attract positive things into your life naturally, because people are attracted to positive people. And if people are attracted to positive people, and our society is ruled by people, then you're going to be presented with more opportunities just by being positive itself. Obviously, you need to do the work to have the things on the resume that you need in order to be qualified for certain jobs or having certain opportunities. But positivity certainly helps you, not only for your mind, but also for, say, your career and living in society, surviving in society, that is. And with that being said, whether or not you believe in God, whether or not you're an atheist, or whether or not you believe or don't believe in free will, you can still have gratitude for what you have in your life. Because gratitude, and why does gratitude make us feel happy? Because when you're grateful for something, well, what are you saying? What are you saying when you're grateful for something? You're saying, okay, like, for instance, if I say, I'm grateful for my girlfriend, I'm grateful that she's in my life. What does that mean? It means that I'm happy that she's there for me. I'm happy that I can see her. I'm happy that the series of events that led to us meeting each other occurred in such a way that we met each other. And I'm grateful to her in a sense that she's sticking around, right? And at the core of it, having gratitude, the feeling of gratitude that part of it is I'm happy that it isn't the case that this isn't in my life. Like, for instance, if you're grateful for food, you're happy that it's not the case that you don't have food, right? Because you're happy that you have food. So it's like it's recognizing that things could be worse, and recognizing that, oh, I actually have it pretty good. And when you recognize that you have it pretty good, even if you might have it bad, if you recognize that you have some things good, it at least gives you a boost of positivity that will then help you be a little bit more positive about other things. You can look at life through a better lens, that is. And I think gratitude, or being thankful to things, is a beautiful feeling. Which leads me to the question of universal beauty. I've been wanting to talk about this on the podcast for quite a while with universal beauty. It all stems from the question itself. The reason why I've liked this question for such a long time is because a friend of mine, a religious friend, while we were driving up to the I won't say where it is because I don't want people to know about it. We were driving up this river road, beautiful river road, out in the wilderness. You know, there's trees all over. It's a sunny day. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous day. And my friend's sitting in the back seat, or maybe he was in the passenger seat. I don't remember. There was three of us. I was driving, and my friend asks, "Greg, why is beauty universal?" Or maybe ask, "Why is there universal beauty?" And at the time, I was pretty like militantly atheist. I had strong beliefs about atheism, or not necessarily I was atheist, but I was like very God denying. So I wasn't quite. I wasn't necessarily like, oh, there is no God, but I was very like. When I was talking to religious people, I was very sensitive to anything that they would say that might suggest that they're trying to indoctrinate me into their religion. So I was a little bit standoffish when he asked me this because I knew that it was a segue into like some sort of something to do with Christianity or God. So I kind of just said, oh, I don't know. And then, of course, there came the response. He said, it's almost like there's a God who wants us to enjoy it. I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. And I didn't really want to say my response because I didn't really want to get into it with him. It kind of just sat with me. But I thought about this question a lot, long and hard, for 3-4 years. I thought about this question. And within that time, my views on religion, my views on God they've sort of expanded. I feel a little bit better about speaking to people about these things. I don't have that. I had a lot of internal blockers with these things, with religion and Christianity and God. And since then, I have sort of let those blockers out, and I'm perfectly good with talking about them. And I should explain why things changed for me. It's mainly because I realized that atheists take religious stories, like from the Bible, way too literally. They, they say things like, "Oh, that dumb, there's a evil old man in the sky that created everything. That's just ridiculous. I'm not going to believe in that, right?" And they're not quite comprehending the fact that these are stories. The stories from the Bible, they're just stories. They're literally just stories. Sure, lots of religious people take them literally as well, and obviously that leads people, very rational people, to think that's definitely didn't happen. That he walked on water. That doesn't make sense. That's impossible, right? But they're stories, right? And stories mean a lot more than, like, they don't need to be factual for them to be important, right? A story can just be that, a story. And all stories have meaning in them, because as human beings, we're the animal that possesses wisdom, right? That's what a Homo sapien. I think it's wise man or something like that. We're the animal that has wisdom, and stories. There's a stark difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge is kind of numbers and facts, solid facts, but wisdom is understanding. You're understanding something on a deep level, right? It's not just memorizing facts. And the thing about stories is that stories don't possess knowledge; they possess wisdom. And we can look at stories in the Bible and we can actually say, well, okay, this actually has, there's actually something to this, right? For instance, if we take the story of Jesus Christ and his resurrection, say dying for our sins, right? We could say that this was a literal story and he literally died for our sins and we're all going to heaven because he died for our sins. Or we could say, well, okay, what does Jesus Christ represent? And in many ways, he's the Son of God, right? And being the Son of God, that means that, what God is the creator of everything, right? And if Jesus is the Son of God, we can likewise say, well, aren't we all the children of God? Because God created everything. In a sense, this story then becomes a little bit Buddhist, right? It's God coming to Earth and seeing things on Earth, right? And in many like Buddhist kind of Hindu tradition, that's kind of what reincarnation is about. It's the Godhead is just, every single human being is just God experiencing life through the eyes of the human being. And in that sense, Jesus Christ becomes a representation of the individual. And he dies on the cross for our sins, but in a sense that could mean, well, dying and then being resurrected. That's sort of the destruction of the old self in favor for the new self. And this new self is more divine, right? And that's sort of, that's, in my viewpoint, that's sort of a symbolization of enlightenment itself. And when we're enlightened, well, what happens? We see past illusions, right? And sin is one of these illusions. Of course, that's just an example. I went on a little tangent there, but anyways, my views on religion have opened up since this conversation with Sean, or I shouldn't have mentioned his name, but that's just his first name. It doesn't really matter. And with that being said, I'm going to go through my thoughts on universal beauty and how they've evolved over time. It might be a little flowery near the end, but I kind of want to leave you all feeling positive for this Thanksgiving, and just take it with a grain of salt. You know, I'm not being literal. I'm kind of just. I wrote a letter to my friend this summer, and I'm basically going to read that letter, but it's going to be more catering towards the audience. So, anyways, what is beauty? Beauty. It is not to be confused with the object of affection, but rather affection itself. Most notably, strong affection, such as love. Beauty is the feeling of love. It's the feeling of awe, of wonder, right? So it's a feeling similar to love. Perhaps a mixture between love and wonder, like I said, which is bestowed upon us after encountering a stimulus, usually by sight or sound, that instills such a feeling within us. And we know when something is beautiful when we can sense or feel that it is, in fact, beautiful. In other words, that which is beautiful instills within us the feeling of beauty. In many ways, it's subjective, right? You know when something's beautiful because you look at it and, wow, that's beautiful, right? If something does not instill this sensation within us, then we can't really consider it beautiful. Moreover, the beautiful require an observer. For without someone to feel its beauty, beautiful is meaningless. And what exactly is the feeling of beauty? Again, it is, at least in my experience, a feeling of awe, wonder, surrender, and love that emerge from a sight or sound. Furthermore, we want to immortalize this feeling, which is generally attempted through preserving the source of the feeling, right? So if you think a forest is beautiful, you'll want to preserve that forest. If you think your child is beautiful, you'll want to preserve your child, right? So it kind of like, in a sense, there's this gravitation towards it, and it's kind of pulling you in, and it's saying, save me, right? Because it's beautiful. You want to preserve it. It's something that you love, in a sense. So for first stage to my answer, why is there universal beauty? So this is what I was thinking when he first asked me this question. This is a biological explanation. So beauty is universal for several reasons. First and foremost, the human brain is composed extremely similarly for all human beings. And this brain is responsible for the perception of beauty. However, since each brain develops differently, and since each person grows up in a different environment, why do we find the same things beautiful? As mentioned above, beauty inspires us to want to preserve that which we believe to be beautiful. Babies are beautiful, and so we want to protect them. It is an evolved or God-given trait that serves the purpose of preserving our species along with things that benefit our species. For instance, rivers, oceans, forests, farmland on a sunny day, and most living things are generally considered to be beautiful. Obviously people don't think a lot of bugs are beautiful. That's why they stomp them, right? When we see a couple holding hands along a path, we think that their relationship is beautiful. When children play and laugh, we think this is beautiful. And whether it be because such things benefit us, our species, or simply make us feel good because of our capacity for empathy, we feel beauty when exposed to these things. Yet, since rain is beneficial to our species, why then do we generally not consider rain to be beautiful? Are mountains all that beneficial to us? Is lightning beneficial? Here's where the biological explanation kind of breaks down, in the sense that that there isn't always utility in beauty. So why would we evolve to think that things that aren't useful to our evolution or to our survival are beautiful, right? I mean, after all, beauty is the feeling of awe, wonder, and love, not utility. Second stage, my answer to why is there universal beauty? Trick question. I was stumped for a while on this. If beauty does not always have to do with utility, then why is it universal? Again, why do we find the same things beautiful? Well, that's the thing. We don't. You and I were both under the assumption that there was such a thing as universal beauty. That everyone in the entire world throughout human history has always thought the same things were beautiful. This notion could not be any further from the truth. Sure, almost anyone thinks a sunset is beautiful, that mountains, lakes, valleys, etc. are beautiful, or blossoming flowers and trees are beautiful. However, none of these things are beautiful to a blind man who cannot see any of these. Likewise, these things may not even be beautiful to the visually inclined, depending on their mood of any given day. An ugly child will be the most precious and beautiful thing to its parents. A song I think is beautiful may be ear-piercing to you. And a beautiful lightning storm may just send a war veteran into a state of frantic PTSD. Although, the question is not asking why beautiful things are universal, but why beauty itself is universal. That is, why does everyone, for the most part, have the capacity to feel beauty? Now, there's obviously some outliers in that some people may not have the capacity to experience beauty. Additionally, it is uncertain whether or not a baby can experience beauty, although I would argue that babies find most of the world beautiful. Perhaps a better question is this: where does beauty come from, and why do most people feel it? Third stage to my answer to why is there universal beauty: energy. Well, if different people have the same senses and have gone through the same experiences, then they will likely think the same things are beautiful. Likewise, all people have the capacity to experience the feeling of beauty. At least, most people do. Since the question is referring to beauty as universal and not beautiful, and since everyone experiences the feeling of beauty the same, it stands to reason that beauty is, in fact, universal. With that said, where does beauty come from? Since the feeling of beauty is attributed to sights and sounds, generally speaking, we can assume that we only feel the sensation of beauty when we are able to see or hear something. This can be done in the imagination as well, obviously. In order to see or hear, there must be an energy source which emits the light or sound that allows you to see or hear. Now, focusing our attention on visual beauty, we see that the source of beauty comes from the sun, fire, and any other source of light. In a sense, beauty comes from heat. Perhaps why we call beautiful women hot, or beautiful men hot. I have never heard someone tell me that pitch black darkness is beautiful because there is nothing to see. And if there is nothing to see, then it is not possible to feel the sensation of beauty from sight. A ruby or diamond are only beautiful when we can see them. And in fact, all things are only beautiful when we can see them. Because for something to be beautiful, we need to feel its beauty, right? We need to experience it. A cloudy day is gloomy because the light of the sun is not bright enough to bring out the beauty in the world, as well as on a clear day when the sun is shining and we can see everything, right? That is, I think we find those things which radiate energy, or appear to do so, as beautiful. But of course, not all those things which radiate energy are beautiful. Or more so, beautiful things radiate energy. Or at least they feel as if they do. In such a way that we ourselves absorb such an energy in the form of the feeling of beauty. The sun, making a bridge of light across the water at sunset, is not only a source of light, but also a source of beauty. Without it, a beautiful summer's evening would be shrouded in darkness, or just unnaturally exposed by artificial light. And artificial light, while sometimes enhancing the beauty of the world, generally doesn't. Why? Sources of beauty have a quality of perfection. Have you ever heard someone say, the sun is not perfect, or water is not perfect? Things that come into being out of natural, seemingly endlessly flowing change generally feel as if they are supposed to exist in the exact way that they do exist. Or more so, they do not appear to be out of place. The sun never gives off the feeling that it is not supposed to be where it is in the sky. It never seems out of place. An ugly building, broken up road, the fumes of car exhaust, and various other man-made disturbances are not deemed as beautiful, or at least generally they aren't. These things were created and placed in the world out of bureaucratic, controlled, and broken up processes. not a chaotic yet seamless one like everything in nature. Now, clouds, really, are usually only ever considered ugly when they block out the sun. After all, are not these things that block out the sun, or at least things that block out and make opaque powerful things or beautiful things, they're considered to be ugly. Pimples are ugly because they block the beauty of the skin. It's similar to someone walking in front of a TV while we're trying to watch something. We say, "Get out of my way. I'm trying to watch this," right? Well, if you're rude, you say that. But when I was a little kid and I'd be playing video games, someone walking the screen, I'd be like, "Hey, like, I'm trying to play this game. You're gonna make me die, right?" You get upset when someone walks in front of the TV. Yet even then, we run into several problems. Indeed, have we not, at one point or another, all looked upon the ugliness of the world with a gentle sort of fondness? Have we not all seen the light of beauty in the darkest of times? Have we not all seen the face of God in death of those we love? It is thus that, since beauty is a feeling which comes from within, it does not require a source of beauty. It does not require light nor sound nor touch, only the ability to feel it. We need only the light within to feel beauty, not the light without. So again, what is beauty and where does it come from? Fourth stage of my answer to why is there universal beauty? Beauty in and of itself. You might recall in the Old Testament when God said, "Let there be light," he was referring to his creation of the universe. Now, hear me for a moment. Let's take this metaphorically. What does he mean by this? Well, who is he? What is God? God is the all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipresent, and omnibenevolent creator of everything in the universe. Now, as for all-knowing, I believe we should change the terminology to give God more credit. Indeed, is not knowledge the folly of man, while wisdom is the nature of the gods? It is thus that God is not all-knowing, but rather all-understanding, for knowledge lies within the realm of language, whereas understanding goes beyond such all-to-human affairs. If God is indeed all-powerful, does that not mean he is power itself? If God is all-understanding, does that not mean that he is the very essence of understanding itself? If God is omnipresent, does that not mean that he is everywhere all at once? And if God is omnibenevolent, does that not mean that he is goodness in and of itself? That he is love? So when God said, "Let there be light," why did he want there to be light? And by the way, this last segment, I was thinking of this in the perspective that I wanted to explain to my friend who's religious why I thought beauty was universal from a perspective that kind of humored religion, but also I'm taking these things metaphorically, and I'm saying that we can replace the word God with God is the whole universe, right? God is reality itself, right? God is space and time. So, anyways, let's move forward. Because I'm agnostic, I'm not religious, and I know lots of people who listen to this podcast are probably atheists. Because, of course, on this podcast, we've talked about things that only atheists would probably talk about. But anyways, so when God said, "Let there be light," why did he want there to be light? Before I explore this question, let us first examine another claim, that God created man in his own image. What does it mean to create something in your own image? When I write, elements of my subconscious mind are being translated onto the page with a continuous flow of creative energy. In a sense, I am pouring myself onto the page. I'm writing in my own image. So too does the painter paint in his own image. The director films in their own image. The chef cooks in their own image. The builder builds in their own image, and so on and so forth. When we create, we let the light within pour out upon the world. Indeed, without this light, no one could see our creations. No one could see us. It's thus that God said, "Let there be light," precisely because he wanted the world to see him, to see itself for exactly what it is, beauty. And so it is not that God made beauty a universal feeling, but rather God is beauty in and of itself, and God, being everything all at once, is universal. The world is beauty, and that is precisely why beauty is universal. And with that being said, while I want everyone to have a wonderful Thanksgiving, a wonderful week, a wonderful month. I don't know the next time I'll throw a podcast on. And I'm just going to say I'm grateful to have the opportunity to have a podcast. I don't have that many listeners. I probably have about, on average, about 70 per episode. But 70 people, I'm grateful to all of you who listen to this podcast because, honestly, just having 70 people, I feel obligated to keep going because I know that means that there's 70 people is a college classroom full of people. And that's 70 people who tune in and listen to my podcasts every month. And if I were to stop, that means that's 70 people who wouldn't get to listen to my podcast, right? And I know that the podcast that I listen to, I get kind of upset when they take a long ass time to post an episode because, when I'm fiending for a podcast, I want to listen to specific podcasters. And I know it sucks when they haven't posted in a while and, you feel like, oh, should I go watch an old episode? But you don't really feel like watching an old episode because, you kind of want to keep up, And that's kind of where I want to say, I apologize that I've only been putting out an episode once a month. But I would really appreciate it if people in the audience, I know that there's at least 70 of you. If you have any suggestions for the podcast, any guest requests, any episode requests, things that you want me to cover, just go to my website, into-the-absurd.com, and there's a little contact me link on there, and just use that to contact me. And that would mean the world to me if I got some more feedback from you guys, just so I know there's a little bit of engagement and I know that I'm doing what people want. I'm giving you the episodes that you would like. Like if you want more interviews, let me know. If you want more of just me doing solo episodes, let me know. If you want more stories, let me know. And speaking of stories, I just finished my novel. It's called On Death and God. I've been working on it for about 3 years now. It's a fiction, and it follows a young man who basically he's really afraid of death, and he wants to conquer this fear. He doesn't know how. And he has this dream where he's encountered by this angel. And he looks at the angel and asks, well, who are you? And she says that she is everything that he's ever loved. And then he notices, he looks deeper in her eyes, and he notices that she's dying. And he says, oh, you're dying. Like, how can I save you? Like, what can I do to help? And then she says, are you willing to die for everything you ever loved? And then the protagonist, his name's John, he says back, I'm not sure. Then the angel says, well, if you're not willing to die for everything you ever loved, then how do you expect it to end? Of course, that's referring to how does he expect to die if he's not going to die for everything he's ever loved. And then he says, I don't know. And somehow he feels like he wants to kiss her. So then he goes and he kisses her, and he feels his soul getting sucked in to her body as if he is, dying, right? He feels like he's becoming nothing. So then he realizes that he's dying, and he says, not like this, and he wakes up, right? And he wakes up in this dystopian world where it's kind of like our world, but just a little bit further in the future. And everything's kind of fucked, and people are repressed, and people spend way too much time on using technology instead of being immersed in the real world. And basically, he dies, goes to he has to go to hell to slay the gods and save everything that he's ever loved. And he has to conquer his fear of death by doing so. So, anyways, that's what On Death and God is about. And I'll be throwing some links on the podcast, maybe even a sample. If you want to check out, I'll probably be recording an audiobook for it, and then maybe I'll post it as an ebook on Amazon. I would look for publishers. I've been looking, but it's kind of hard to do that when you're not really known by anyone. So I'll work on that. I'll throw on a link, and you guys just let me know what you want to see from the podcast in the future. And if you don't want to go to the contact me link, you could also go directly to my email, which is into.the.absurd.podcast@gmail.com. So anyways, happy Thanksgiving to y'all. And if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thursday. And I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful week, wonderful month. And I'm thankful to have you around. I'm thankful that you exist. And I'm grateful that I exist. So, anyways, peace out. Thank you for listening.